faithfully carry out our duties to the best of our judgment and ability, the advancement of this district and the benefit of all of our community and fellow citizens. And the Coorong District Council members acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land and waters, the Ngarrindjeri people, whose ancestral lands are on which we meet today. Acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of Aboriginal people to country and pay our respects to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to all First Nation people. Thank you. I'm wriggling around, councillors, again. It's still my back and other parts of my body. Apologies, I have none. Acknowledgements, I believe I have none, but I'm just going to acknowledge that Travis is acting Roads and Infrastructure, and Charmaine Sherman today is acting Corporate and Community. So welcome, Charmaine, to the front. Number 3, declarations of conflicts of interest. Councillors, is there any? Councillor Peach?
Now, I may need to declare a slight conflict for decision report number 9 in the Centenary Community Gymnasium Committee minutes. If I just foreshadow that, I'm not sure at this stage, but I do intend to stay.
We'll be sure by then. Want to do? Anyone else? Okay. Number 4, confirmation of the minutes, including the confidential minutes held on the 19th of March, councillors. Councillor Qualman is the mover, I believe. Is there a seconder? Councillor O'Hara. Is there any discussion, councillors? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 5, adjourned business. I have Neil. Number 6. The 6 is the Mayor's report. 6.1. I'm just going to briefly go through a couple of things. I'm starting to think that our process of roads and infrastructure, it's working. We probably need to have some agenda items to discuss during that committee at some point when the new director fully bedded himself in. But I think the most important part, is our council and community feedback and goodwill. We'll note on the 6th of March, along with the Mayor of Naracoorte Lucendale and our State Member of Parliament, Nick McBride, visited the Minister in Adelaide, along with some community representatives, which were extremely strong-willed and spoke well. And we've formed some consultative committee, because they are in 2 different health regions, so there's a little bit of a difference there around this, and I understand that work's ongoing within the Health Department around trying to bring back or improve the model that has been, I suppose, somewhat imposed on us there in terms of health at Canalpin and Tintinara in particular. I made a brief presentation to the Select Committee on the River Murray flood event at Murray Bridge. There was some flooding on some swamps along from Wellington back up the river here. So we just gave a brief State Parliamentary Committee there. Also met representatives from South Australian Railway Company around their ideas. I suppose this is a very broad view of what might be possible with the railway line between particularly Murray Bridge and Adelaide in terms of making it faster and more available for double stack containers. They will put their proposal to the state government. They simply put it to the mayors just east of Adelaide in effect. So we'll let them do that. It's probably the first time I've seen a plan which might have some chance. Councillor Qualman, you might have drove that route sometimes. But this involves making it faster and allows double stack containers. It does not change the grade at all at the end of the day. Along basically some adjustments in the present route. We'll see where that goes. And along with senior management of this council, we met with the leadership of the Essential Services Commission. There on the 27th in this building we met. I think it's a very positive meeting around what they're looking for and what we felt we could offer. I think it's positive we've got off on the right start, in my view, with SCOSA around the way that they have changed in their second year their advice to councils anyway, and how we may help them and perhaps they can help us. Any questions?
Regarding the SCOSA, do you find as much impediment to the council by having to go through all the process of what they do, what they want, as against what we normally do?
Probably the wrong question to me, the CEO.
There will be extra work. They try to use all our public-facing documents as their first port of call, but they also rely on council to ensure that we have raised any nuances or peculiarities for our council. So we have a preliminary document that we have just finalised today. We also had then a follow-up meeting with all councils yesterday where they went through the template. So there is an element of work attached to it, yes.
And what are the main documents that the council produce that feel are essential, like your long-term financial plan, your annual business plan, water supply, waste management?
Alignment of plans. Alignment of the plans would be the take-home message.
Whatever you put together, you've got to make sure you follow.
Needs to align.
Particularly the financial.
Particularly in the financial area, obviously, here. That's what they're interested in. Alignment. Consistency.
And that's probably the hardest thing for us as a council to do.
Hardest for anyone.
Well, it is, because you know, you don't know, you apply for grants, you don't know if you get it. And that changes the whole scenario of things.
That's right.
That's who you may, and the two councillors who are on the Audit and Risk Committee may also make a comment, but they are also very much interested in our strategic risk register. And so when we had the last Audit and Risk Committee, there was a comment that we should make sure that the risks that we have looked at and accounted for in the long-term financial plan are also articulated quite clearly in the ABP and in any other documents, because they're the things that over a 10-year period, identifying the risks is probably just as important as identifying the numbers that go with those risks.
Thank you.
Other questions? Councillor Quammen.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, it's actually just a couple of comments regarding the March 5th meeting, the roads and infrastructure. I totally agree what you said regarding after the meeting we have the community engagement. I reckon that's very successful. It was a good thing and gives the community the chance to talk to council and the elected members with their concerns. And also I was going to ask the CEO on the March 6th meeting with the various ministers, but you already asked that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll move on. Councillor Arthur, you wish to add anything to your report?
No, just probably one box flat. Wild Dog Coordinating Committee is
Please.
sort of at a little bit of a quandary at the present moment, because the Victorian government has passed legislation which has protected dingoes in the area that affects us. Northwest of their state, right, they're virtually down to border town on their side of the border. So there's been a lot of to and fro, and as you say, I had a Zoom meeting about it, trying to get ministers on board with their ministers, and I don't think they realise, you know, the ramifications. I'm sure they don't. Yeah, let's wait and see what's going to happen here, but I don't think it'll be pretty.
No, thank you. Councillor Quammen, you need to emphasise?
Pretty well as written. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just probably a little comment. I found the January 30th meeting of the bus tour down to the Solo Resource Centre in the city of West Torrens very informative, and to see what happens to all that waste and to see how another city council operates. That was interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, it certainly was, wasn't it? Under the ruling that all councils are all different.
Yes.
All different. Councillor Peach is thinking about asking me. So.
I am. Mr. Mayor, am I allowed to make a short verbal report on an item this month?
I would think so.
Right.
Hang on. Was that a yes or a no, eh? Yeah, I think so.
No worries. On the 4th of April, I attended a meeting with the local health network in Kenelpin as one of the community representatives, which followed on from the mayor's meeting back in March. I'd say the meeting was constructive in general, but that the community representatives and the local health network still are coming at things from a diametrically opposed point of view. So there's a follow-up meeting in 2 months' time. They did acknowledge a number of points of failure in their communication and other aspects of how they've been delivering services that they were going to attempt to improve over the next 2 months. They also indicated that since the public campaign has started, the use of their services has gone up quite significantly, which is a good sign. And I think the community representatives there tried to make the point that while that number of elderly residents who have now stopped trying to call due to the failure of service over that period of time. The other point I'd like to make is that during that meeting, I challenged Mr. Champion on his use of Gale's law as a reason for abandoning services in Tintinara, and he walked that back, which is contrary to the public comments he made at the time, that is not a reason the services were taken away. And that's about it.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else got anything pertinent? Okay, we move on. Number 7 is petitions. I have nil. Number 8, deputations, and we have none. Number 9 is public question time. I don't think I have any. A little bit to me. 10.1 decision reports. Draft 24-25 annual business plan and budget, and there is a recommendation. I'm just going to read the recommendation to start the process. The draft 24-25 annual business plan and budget be endorsed for public consultation between the 2nd of May and the 23rd of May 24 inclusive, and the Chief Executive Officer be delegated authority to make minor formatting changes to the document as it is refined prior to the final reason. We note that there's some discrepancies in some things which are not important in our financial descriptions, but are in some more broader description categories, as raised particularly by Councillor Rountree there. Councillors, I can just have someone move the motion. I can do it any way we wish to go.
I have a question.
Have a question? Yes.
First comment would be that the explanation on the depreciation is a lot better, so thank you for that, I think, better explanation. The to be advised figures that sit against the Wellington East water supply project on page 24, would that be included before the final document is out?
Through me. I
Yeah.
can answer that. They're two, we put them in the ABP because they are two very big strategic projects that we want. We don't know whether we'll have numbers from, particularly for the Wellington East water, before the document goes to public consultation. What we will do then is change the notation to read that once the information from SA Water is forthcoming, a report will come to council, and if there needs to be a budget allocation, it will come into a budget review 1, 2 or 3, depending on when SA Water finish their particular work. So it's unknown, but we wanted to make sure that it was flagged as an important strategic project.
Thank you. Second question is on page 20, or page 36, I think it is on this one, yeah, page
Of the
36
document.
of the statement financial positions under the ABP. Just non-current liabilities, borrowings in 23, 24, then to 24, 25. Looks like the borrowings have increased by a further 4 million. I thought we had only approved a $1.6 million loan. Can you just explain? I know it's operating capital, but can you just explain what that is?
I'll ask Bill to come up, but the
Bill, can you come to that, Mike?
there will be a combination of CAD and fixed loans that will go into that. The CAD has been approved. The fixed loans haven't been at this stage. This is what we anticipate will happen, but it is a combination of figures there.
So
Bill,
our
do you wanna
total
add something?
liabilities our loans are going to go from 2.6 to 6.675.
What page are you, sorry?
Page 36.
37?
36 down, it's just
I see it,
under
yeah.
liabilities, non-current liabilities.
Bill, do you want to add anything to that? I've pulled out a page and given it to you too, and I can put it back.
Through you, Mayor.
Yep.
So the current liabilities captures existing loans, additional loans, CADs, repayments. So it's a whole suite of things that go into the figure. There's a breakdown which I can provide, but it's not adding the existing loan that we had onto the new loan. It's a combination that is applied to the figure, such as the repayments, the CAD facility, the loans that are pending, they all combine into a figure.
So when we're comparing it to the 23-24 budget, I'm right to think we've increased by $4 million. Because it's got 23-24 total liabilities, 4,365. 24-25, the budgeted amount is 8,434, which is $4 million increase.
Yep, $4 million through your Mayor. $4 million is what appears in the budget. It's actually, like I've mentioned, there's the CAD that's involved in this. There's the 1.6 that is factored into this. There's the $2.1 million that is also factored into this loan for the 24-25 year. And there's repayments that come off that figure. It's actually closer to 7. And once you make the repayments, it brings it back down to about 9.4, which is in here.
So looking at it from just a position of all of those things you just said would have been included in our original number from 23-24, a similar concept, no?
Yeah,
The things that get rolled into that general number. So we're $4 million worse off, according to that.
through Mayor, it's just a reflection of the borrowings. So in 23-24, the proportion of borrowing much different, much lower. So hence the 2.3 million figure in there. 24-25 factors in the loans that have been implemented during the year this year, and also the budget for 24-25, which is a $2.1 million loan in the budget papers.
So through you, Mayor, have the elected members, I mean, I know we had a big debate over the 1.6 million debenture loan, and that's minuted. Where's the information that says that we've agreed to the other bits?
Through you, Mayor, these figures were displayed in the long-term financial plan and are displayed in the long-term financial plan and also at the workshops and the special audit and risk committee meetings.
Well, I don't go to the audit and risk meetings, but so we've agreed as a group, then that's what we're happy to do. You feel like that's what we've agreed to do?
That has been the presentation all along, councillor.
I just would, so we don't need a motion to move any of that sort of stuff, or we do that when we move the budget?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all my questions.
Yeah, councillor Maidment in a second, CO.
Just the motions that you're mentioning would be if there were some changes to what's in the budget. So the 1.6 that you're talking about with the CAD was a change for this financial year. If something happens next financial year that's not in line with the budget, we would definitely come back to council just as we have in the past.
Councillor Maidment.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, I have a wish to change, excuse me, the wording in recommendation 1 to remove endorsed and put release for public consultation. I don't think we should be endorsing a document that's not been passed as yet. And that's going to be a trend throughout the evening.
The effect will be the same. Are you saying with that change of one word, you'll move the recommendation, councillor?
Yes.
The effect's the same. I'm going to say that yes, all right. You're saying that we release for public.
Yep.
Between, that's the only word change, and you're moving that way, councillor.
Yes, Mayor. thank
Okay, do
you.
you want to speak to that now or not?
I already have. No, I think we need to release before we endorse.
Okay, that's,
We went through this last year, I seem to remember.
for a seconder,
No one.
Councillor
Oh.
Bland is the seconder. You want 5 minutes, councillor Maidment, or you're happy to reserve your position on speaking to it?
No, I'm happy.
Councillor
it is.
Bland? You
No,
want
I'm
to-
happy. I've been through it a few times.
few
now.
times. Councillors Quammen and Bland are on audit committee and they reviewed it again
Last week.
late last week in a special meeting.
Alright.
Councillor Quammen?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I have a question regarding the ABP. Back in September ordinary meeting, motion number 233/23, and it reads in part 2, to include the expenditure of 65,000 to seal the entire parking bay area on the council land adjacent to the RA EVs charging stations at Punt Road, Tarlin Bend site in the 24-25 budget. Now, I can't find that anywhere in the budget, please.
Didn't go back in.
Looking for it now.
So you won't see that as, through you, Mayor, you won't see that as a standalone item. That would be, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be in maintenance? Or in your,
I think this is maintenance.
It's not maintenance.
can't hear you.
Have to look.
New capital.
Bill, have you got a,
Capital items are clustered up into total figures without the actual detailed project listing in this document. So I think through Acting Director, Roads and Infrastructure, we can provide that.
in all these discussions, it was still included in the capital budget?
Okay,
My understanding.
right, thank you.
Through you, Mr Mayor,
Yep.
my understanding of that was that that motion didn't get up.
Yeah, mine too.
May I?
I sent to you the two motions, councillors.
Mr. Mayor, I believe the motion did get up because it was moved from the 23-24 budget to the 24-25 budget. So it is on the books as far as I understand for this current
Did it
budget.
be deferred or moved? Yeah, that, yeah. Oh, so this is the top one? Two through 323, councillor Quammen, is that you're referring to?
Yes, correct, 2, 3,
Moved by
3.
councillor Hara, seconded councillor Bland, that council endorse the construction of the proposed car park adjacent to the Menangi council offices, including the charging station portion of the adopted budget. Include the expenditure of $65,000 to seal the entire parking area of the council land adjacent to the charging station in the draft 24-25 budget. That's the intent of it. So that motion with notice voting for the motion were so it can be pulled out, but it was carried. I declared it carried 4-3 by the look of that.
Hmm.
And I vote. It was clear. So I don't know if it helps you, councillors.
But that was part of the EV station setup.
The councillors, I'm just going to stop. It was important to be part of that process, and when the EV station moved, it stood alone as a separate project. And that motion effectively does that. So it's still in the budget process now. It's open for public consultation around that.
So through you, Mayor, is there any problem with identifying that specifically as a line item?
Sure, in the public consultation part of the information, we would be.
And we could do that.
Talk about capital projects. We would normally identify capital projects like that as part of public facing document. Councillor Coleman still, yeah.
Yes, well, thank you for that one, and thank you to councillor Roundtree. She asked my concerns about this financial statements with non-current liability borrowings. I had concerns about that one as well. The other thing is regarding the report on the APP, and it says about how much proposed rate increase. I just thought it could be a little bit clearer how much we're proposing. Could anybody tell me what actually it is? Increase.
Yeah, Bill, you.
I'll just find the page that probably I could refer to. Page 19, the long-term financial plan. Halfway through the page, there's a table that lists the next 10 years. It states the growth CPI and the net increase. And the paragraph below that table, I'll quote the words, displays an actual increase of 8.52%, which comprises 0.5 growth and 5% CPI, and an increase of 3.02. That is for year 24-25, and the same pattern is the same breakdown is displayed in that table throughout the 10 years. And from year 4 onwards, the net increase is 1.72% after CPI and growth.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a question around that. So if I heard you correctly there, if I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, it was 8.52 for this year. That's a different figure to what was discussed leading up to this document and workshops, if I recall correctly.
I'm going to suggest, councillor, that we were talking about 8.61 or thereabouts originally. What's your recollection of what?
My recollection was much closer to 10%.
No. So the workshops that we've had subsequent to the couple that you haven't been at have definitely been in the 8.5, 8.6 mark.
Some other,
I don't have a problem with that. I'm just,
other savings have been discovered.
Right.
Well, I'm looking for people to speak for or against the motion because I actually do have a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a couple of questions.
You want to speak or you want questions?
Oh, look, a couple of questions regarding
Yeah.
presentation. Page 21, we've got Meat and Livestock Australia. It's under the heading of external funding. Right, we've got Meat and Livestock Australia. The external funding amount is $40,238. The total project cost, that'll be the cost of the council,
No, no.
well, $373,230.
Well, it's just,
Why is it in there as a total cost if it's only being externally funded by 40,000?
I'll look to the staff member who's involved with that at the back, but our component of that overall is we're delivering $40,000 worth of work for that particular grant. That is not, and I can see how that would be confusing, councillor, but it is not a cost to council.
It's very confusing, I think.
Yeah.
And also the Limestone Coast, Murrayland, Riverland Landscape Board, Dryland, so Lindy projects, external funding 4,000 and
Same.
total project cost 48,000. That reads, if I'm a ratepayer, that reads that the council's putting $40,000 into that and we're putting $330,000 into that.
We'll put it through you, Mayor. We'll put a little asterisk to say that is not a cost to council. They're external funding grants that go through the LAP, and as a LAP member, you'd probably be familiar with those, but they are not cost to council. Responsibility is to deliver the amount shown in there on the external funding amount.
The other thing is part of that carried grants money that we've received carried forward from last year, from this financial year.
So some of those grants go over different financial
Exactly
years.
right. Now, that
and-
should be shown.
So that's shown every month in the info doc, councillor.
It's not actually shown the full carryover figures, is it?
Okay, so we can, if that's not clear, we can make that clearer, but there is no extra cost to council in on any of
Right.
those, and
The
they're
other thing
operational
is-
grants.
The other thing is, it has been notified, we have been by the Kakuma Road reconstruction will not be done in the 23-24
Correct.
year, which is $1.4 million. Where is it in here?
So that will be
It's
carried
got to
over.
be in here because it's going to be done in 24-25.
That is correct, councillor.
Sorry?
That is correct.
Yep. So where is it?
It's in the budget figures. That is definitely accounted for.
What would we have that under? Will we have that under,
the bill will go,
consumable sewer roads, contractors discretionary?
no, just hang on. We're just,
What is it actually under?
Bill, have you got the answer, please?
Through you, Mayor, at the workshops, especially, I do recall at the special audit and risk meetings, especially, I have mentioned this before, in BR1 in 24-25, the budget's transparent as in, we've got the 6.5 million for capital, which is displayed in the documents. Anything that's deferred will come back through again and be clearly identified. So anything that's like deferred or not finished, it will reappear on top of the 6.5. This is the base that you've got in the documents. Anything that's deferred or not finished will reappear and be listed.
This is a known. If it's a known, why can't it go in now? Why confuse the ratepayer about what's happening?
Through
As
you,
well
Mayor.
as elected members, I might add.
So councillor, it's known now in this year's budget. If it's not spent in this year's budget, which
But the staff has
Yeah, but-
told the chambers it will
yeah,
not. be spent
maybe
this year.
not, but this is where the confusion comes of rolling things through in budgets. So protocol now that it will be recognised in BR1 as unspent from the previous year.
Yeah, can I also say through you, Mayor, we also need to align to that asset management plans, and the asset management plans are aligned with the budget. So we will align with the budget asset management plans. So there's transparency, especially for a SCOSA. Then you bring in the deferred projects on top of it, and it's really clear for a SCOSA and any other external parties, including auditors, to itemise and distinguish between any deferred or carried over projects.
Can I maybe just enhancing what I think I'm trying to work at what you're both saying, and I might get this wrong, but is it that we don't bring it in to the budget when we know it's carried forward? Because that would affect that total amount of money we need to run the organisation, but by bringing it in BR1, it's sort of extra, because if that sat there as if that came in now, and it sat there as in our income, that this was going to be used for this financial year.
My
it would
next
have an
question was
effect
going
on
to
the
be,
overall bucket of money we need, which would impact everything flowing down.
well,
So that's extra and above, so bring it in BR1.
yeah, but when you know it's a no, my next question
That's my
was
point.
will we receive that money in 23-24 financial year, the grant money?
Which money are we talking to?
Sorry?
This SLRP money,
No, that'll be 24-25.
so it's carried forward as well in their book.
So there was a couple of grants for you, Mayor,
Mhm.
for Karkuma Road. One of them, it seems like we're not on the popularity list for the Commonwealth Government. The high risk intersection one, we were notified late last week that we weren't successful for. But we, as you know, have talked with the contractor that doing stages 2A and 2B together gives us some efficiencies of scale. Any funding that is related to it, it doesn't matter if it comes in this year or next. If it comes in this year and we don't spend it, we show it as a liability. Tell me if I'm wrong, Bill. And once we then move into 24-25 and we start to expend it, it starts to come out of the accounting process. So either way, it's not going to impact or jeopardise the financial statements or the numbers, if that's what you're concerned about.
Well, this local government accountancies really
Different
got
to others,
act a
councillors.
little bit.
No, it's
Because
different.
when you receive the money, you've got to note it.
But we haven't received it, councillor.
So if we've received that, whatever it is, in 23-24, it must be noted in 23-24 financial year. And that's where 1.4 million is a fair few dollars carry forward. So, you know, you can say at the end of the financial years, like last year, we had 2.5 in the bank. We got 3.1 on the same day. So, you know, like, I keep asking, accrued or cash? You know, like it seems semi-accrued when it suits.
I'm here, councillor, the chair. We can go around for a long time, councillor, around this, and as you know, local government accounts for things differently than you and I may in a business sense.
Not right.
The reality is that the council has been unsuccessful in the HSVP, as was most of Australia, I might add, in hoping we could double that amount of money for Karkuma Road. So we are back now to doing sections 2A and 2B, the 24 financial year. I suppose subject to, and someone pull me up when I'm wrong, subject to a successful SLRP application for 2B, but we would have no reason to think we wouldn't get that one. and therefore make some efficiencies in approximately, and James is not here, getting to Southern Cross Road approximately with the seal of Carcooma Road. So we've sat off of doing it this year to a degree, hoping we could double our money through a federal grant. I have read the list of federal grants and are very indeed nationwide. But the federal government hasn't expended all of that, but they have abolished that program. I'm still on, well, I'm really waiting for someone else to speak against or for, otherwise I'm going to put the motion pretty soon, and councillor Maben, if she says anything more than a question, we'll close.
I'm happy to close if everybody's finished, so I don't have any other questions.
So councillors, recommendation is as it reads with the change in one word, and that is instead of endorsed for public consultation is released. Everyone understand that one? I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried, but councillor Arthur's voted against it, but the balance of the councillors, all the other 6 councillors have voted for it. Still carried. Thank you. Number 2. Draft long-term financial plan 24-25, which is sort of goes in
Tandem.
we just discussed, councillors. There is a recommendation there. Someone wish to move that or
Questions?
yes? Starting with you, councillor,
Okay,
yes.
thank you. So, I emailed through today some questions and you've had a bit of time to have a look at them. So this was looking at the current long-term financial plan as opposed to the one that is currently on the website. So the comparison told us that our population grew by 149 people, but that our volunteer percentage had dropped from 35.5 to only 15%. I'm just wondering if that's.
I'm going to let the CEO, she's done the work.
So I've got the answer ready to send to you, actually, councillor, thank you. The 15%, now, I've spoken with 2 staff about this. It depends where you look on the, to be frank, where you look on the ABS website, but we know that that figure should be 27%. There has been a drop, and in my explanation to you when I send it out will be that volunteering across Australia has dropped. I suspect the 15% belongs to a particular category of people rather than the overall. So it will move to 27%. That has absolutely no bearing on our financials. It's really just to provide the context and the environment in which the council works.
The other thing I noticed was that our gross agricultural production has supposedly increased from 326 million to 607 million. Do we know why that's jumped so high in 3 years?
So these aren't our figures. These are ones that we actually take from external websites, particularly, again, ABS and ABARE. The 326 was correct at the time the CVP was written in 2021. I went and had a look. I'd have to do a deep dive to see why it's actually changing, but by the time that report had already been finished, it had moved to about 599. And so 607 would be the current figure. There has been significant increases. Now, remember, that's a gross figure. So the environment from a farming perspective, although your individual farm may not be experiencing it, has generally been that the volumes have been good because the seasons have been relatively good compared to other, and the last 2 years, there's been an 18.5% increase, so it wouldn't take long to get to that amount, but 607 is definitely right.
Thank you. We have 37 kilometres more sealed roads and our unsealed roads have increased by 156 kilometres. Is that correct?
So the sealed roads first. Oh, sorry, through you, Mayor. Carcooma, we have 7 Mile Road and the constant work at Tailem Bend. So there has been increases to the sealed road network over that period of time. The figure that was quoted probably in the CVP or at some point in the past could have been up to 2 or 3 years old by the time it got into that, because sometimes data is not updated correctly, and our ability to collect data has improved enormously probably over the last 5 to 6 years. The unsealed roads are always a little bit, trying to align them is always a little bit of a challenge because sometimes unmade reserves pop into an unsealed road as well. So, but the figures that are used generally are around within a couple of 100 kilometres of each other, and the Grants Commission, whose most important part in this puzzle in terms of deciding how much unsealed roads. We will use their figures from time to time, but they don't always align.
Thank you. It's good news that we have 463 more rateable properties, but 11 less businesses. Is that how it is going? Because it's sort of sad that we've lost 11 businesses out of the region.
In the short time since you sent, I can't comment on that. I just know that that's probably, I've just noted beside that, councillor.
And
It-
my last bit about that, just some of the visuals of that, the community vision plan, which appears later in the document, just has to have some tweaking, I guess, to make sure all the bits line up. So one of the things it said there was that we had 2,400 people employed in the long-term financial plan. It says we have 74.2% of employment now. And obviously you've suggested that I've calculated that on the wrong number, but I just did it what was in front of me on that document. So can you just explain that anomaly?
So the calculation of the number of people employed is not a direct percentage of the number of people in the community, because there are children involved in that total number for the community. There are people who aren't looking for work, even if they are of workforce age. And then there are people who either through disability or age are not looking for work either actively. So doing 74% of our population, which is about 5.5, I suspect gave you the 4.139, which is the starting point is not correct. So the figure that the ABS or the labour force people use, and I've put two sites in there, the RBA website and the ABS website, for more expansive explanations of how that's calculated. But we will put a little asterisk to show that these are ABS data, and they're not data that council calculates in any way. And to be frank, I don't know what the employed, and they sometimes call it the participation rate, but again, that's generally a percentage. So if we can find the actual number they use 74% of, I can let you know, but I do know they also change from month to month because the labour force numbers come out every month.
So in the previous year, through your mayor, where we've listed 2,400 people, how would they have got that number?
So they would have done that on the percentage of whatever the group that said they were participating in the workforce was. We will go and find the most recent number, and I had a quick look this morning, and it's 2,189. So it does move around a little bit because, as I said, that changes from month to month.
I raise this because I feel like this data is good data to have and useful for when we are planning ahead to sort of know this stuff. I mean, if we do have 11 businesses that are no longer here, we probably need to work out what stopped them, or was it anything, we can be involved in. I think we've done well to see the growth in rateable properties. That's encouraging. Yeah, I suppose you want to see more people work.
The data is all public that is quoted there. So generally the ABS, now I'm not saying it's the easiest site to navigate from time to time, but if there's something specific you want, we can either get it through the ABS website, the Labour Force, which is another Commonwealth website, or the RDA also do a collection. The other thing is that you have to be careful because sometimes when you're looking at the data, it may quote the most recent census figures, which was 2022. Sometimes it quotes 2021. And if the ABS have done some work in the interim between now and when the census was last done, and they do many projects, there could be a change to some data. So it's a matter of always scouring that to put in these documents.
I have another question, unless anyone else wants to jump in.
No,
If I could ask
go on.
another one. So on finance costs, it says, it has a statement that says this. It says additional cash outlay is required over the period of the plan to renew and build assets with approximately $24 million of new loans, 10-year average of 2.4 million, required to see out the plan. As such, interest has been factored into the plan and is reflected in increased operating expenditure. This paragraph is suggesting that the council needs to borrow $24 million to see out the long-term financial plan. And it says that if we don't put the rates up annually, then council will not be able to reduce its borrowing as per the plan, thereby increasing the interest. I find it a really terrifying statement.
When you put figures into a 10-year plan and you have to show the 10-year amount, that's probably correct. There is the way you actually present the long-term financial plan, we have very little wiggle room, but they want to see an aggregate of 10 years. So that's exactly what it looks like. And that hasn't changed from any presentation that we've given you.
So if I may, Mr. B, I had this exact same question. I did raise this with the director a number of weeks ago. But my recollection of, and I've been looking through here trying to find the line that forecasts the borrowing, nowhere near $24 million in new loans over the 10 years.
I'm looking at Bill, through you, Mayor.
Through you, Mayor. Yeah, if you refer to the long-term financial plan, statement of comprehensive income, there's the loan amounts throughout the 10 years that equate to approximately 24 million. But I suspect what you're looking at, councillor, may be the actual liability any given year. The peak in borrowing liability reaches about 12 million. Factor in that we're repaying loans as we begin throughout the 10-year process. So although we seek 24 million outs of loans, doesn't mean we'll have 24 million books, because we have to enter into repayment schedules.
So through Ms. Mayor, so in the uniform presentation of finances, is there a line item that indicates the borrowing required in that year?
What page are you looking at, councillor?
No, that's a question. There was a document, a draft document that had that as a bottom line item, which indicated new borrowings required in each year. I'm just wondering where I would find that now.
Through you, Mayor, I can point that out. I'll just
Bill, a second, Bill, a
take a
second.
minute to find it.
I'll finish on then, just while you're looking for that, Bill, through you, Mayor. The plan then says, it is advised that council refrain from expending on new capital expenditure in order not to place further pressure on its operating position, and that council should focus on returning to a surplus operating result before considering any additional or new upgrading of assets. This plan, I reckon, can be interpreted as saying that council is going to borrow a lot more money, put up the rates, and not provide any new capital projects or infrastructure for the next 10 years. That's how it reads to me, and that's how it's reading. And if that's not the message, then the message is not coming through this document clearly.
Through you, Mayor, that is intended to say that any new, and I'll make it up, a new playground should not be anticipated in the next 10 years, because we need to get back to basics, basically, and we knew the assets that we have, and it probably goes back to Councillor Arthur's point the whole time. Every time you build a new asset, it does cost depreciation from a revaluation point of view and a maintenance. So it's about no new assets in that sense, but that doesn't mean we're not going to maintain the ones we've got.
So we can't expect in the next 10 years any new upgraded assets, but we can expect $24 million worth of
No, not
extra
24.
loans.
Through you, Mayor.
Or rates.
Come back to what Bill said about the peak debt, not the total debt.
Yeah,
Bill,
through you, Mayor. There's a capital expenditure summary by asset page that's attached to the long-term financial plan statements. That displays essentially most of the capital expenditure is on renewals, the vast majority. There is an aspect of, there's 500,000 in 24-25, which is for upgrades and new assets, which is itemised throughout the document. But beyond those core assets, it's advised not to, and that was, I guess, the advice through the Audit and Risk Committee and Chair. And these are my words, but my interpretation from the meeting was that it's important to be clear to the community that the funding should go to renewal of assets as a priority until such point in time where you start to hit surpluses in your operating budget, then you can start to adjust, which will be in the later part of the plan.
But through you, Mayor, where does that leave our footpath strategy, for instance?
So through you, Mayor, the footpath strategy, the new expenditure there will be all allocated to Tintinara as per presentation.
in
So-
the forthcoming
So,
year.
yep, in the forthcoming.
Is that not new assets?
Yes.
So through you, Mayor, if I'm reading this correctly, is proceeds from borrowing, statement of cash flows, proceeds from borrowing, is that the intended new borrowing year on year? 2.1 this year, 2 million next year, 2.1 the following, etc.
Through you, Mayor, that's correct.
Yeah. So
I still have grave concerns with how this is presented verbally, and what I took from reading it, with all the knowledge that I have from our meetings and workshops. And when I read that, I felt confused that it was telling me something that was pretty miserable.
Telling you something which is not uncommon for at least rural councils in Australia at the moment.
I,
The reality of the cost of replacement or maintenance, call it like replacement of infrastructure in particular, dominates our budgets.
but how, through you, Mayor, how would a SCOSA look at this and then say that we were a viable council? With
Well, we'll
this
find out,
sitting-
we'll find out in about
But
10
it-
months' time.
Well, this worries me greatly.
Well, it
because-
worries me, but your dilemma is, are you prepared to properly fund the continuation of the present assets in a workable condition, or after you may have had some new assets?
I think if we have to borrow $2.4 million every year to just remain,
but
to keep the status
that's-
quo, we need to have a serious talk
That's the
about what we're
short-term
doing.
position. If you look to the midterm, is to
Well,
get the
24
surplus.
million over 10 years.
No, don't, that figure's
is what
not,
it says.
no, I know what it says.
Well, this is where we've
Need
got to
to-
change
you
the
need to-
wording.
need to
Because
look
if
at
that's what
the
it says
debt.
in the document, that's what people are
Needs
going to assume,
clarification on the
including
statement.
myself.
I think the trouble is there's so many different graphs here. They look very nice, but probably get more people confused. Because when I look at this, I look at the statement of comprehensive income over the 10-year period, right? Income against expenses, right? This year it's $874,000 deficit. Next year it's 540,000 deficit. Year after it's 323, 424, 530, 641, 286. And then in year 8, we have a slight surplus. You add them together, they don't get anywhere near 24 million. And you don't have to borrow that amount, unless, I find it hard to believe that when we've got to borrow $1.6 million when, the expenditure's not there.
Through you, Mayor, councillor, you're referring to the operating component only, then there's capital, which is another 6.5 million on top of that.
That's
Council,
6.5 million over what? 10
Oh,
years?
no, just that
Per
first year in the budget, so
Well, that's only another 650,000, still a long way short of 24 million.
I know 6.5 billion, sorry, councillor.
be careful we don't mix one-year discussions with 10-year projections. Councillor Peach?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, would I be correct in saying that based on this document, which statement of cash flows, we're looking at over the 10-year window of borrowing 24 million and repaying 17.9 million in principal, which would leave us with a $6.1 million overall net increase in borrowings on the 10-year plan.
Through you, Mayor, I have not added that up, but that's the principal. Plus the opening balance of loans, which we currently have.
So I'm looking at the net increase over the 10-year window. I think that would be helpful to have in the document rather than the gross borrowings.
I agree. I think the way that, if that is the situation, explaining it in that way,
So
is
through you,
far
Mayor,
more palatable.
we will put in both, because I think Bill will say that one is how we need to do it from a model statements point of view, but we'll also do an explanation that, excuse me, is in line with community reading the document.
So through you, Mayor, I think particular concern is the paragraph on page 17 that Councillor Roundtree read out earlier, finance costs. Because it talks about new loans without talking about repayment of principal on those loans. And that's where I'm getting at. On that page, if the net outcome is listed there,
Yeah.
I think it would be a slightly more
Well, that would be a better way of portraying it in the public domain. Council, we've got two on the audit committee here, Councillors Coleman and Blenny. You want to add anything from the reflections from that committee and special meeting last week?
No, I think everything was said previously, and I think, I wasn't at the last audit committee, unfortunately, but, and councillor Coleman may be able to add to that, to where we move to in that week. I have to ask the question.
Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Then rather, when we get to it on the agenda about the audit meeting, I might as well speak. It was just the last one, this extra, or
Special meeting last week. yeah.
special meeting last week, was mainly some wording changing, and I personally put in that we should, one of the paragraphs that was written, it's more in telling about, because of contractor costs, inflation and so forth, other costs going up, that we should be looking at rate increases, and I thought that's probably not the wise decision to, we should be also including how we're proactive in cost saving and going down the road for greater efficiency and trimming the fat, because so I see it has changed now, because it sort of had as if we've got to be pressurising our ratepayers to putting the rates up, but so they done that, and there was some other couple of little minor tweaks to make it more palatable to the community. Okay.
I just acknowledge, councillors, you can take a group of figures that can tell a sad story or a bad story. But I'll probably take confidence from the Audit and Risk Committee's position. This is the best mid-term strategy. Councillor Roundtree. I am starting to look for someone to move something.
On page 19, it talks about rates and employee costs as a percentage of rates. I'm just wanting to know why employee costs are presented in that. What's the bonus of that particular chart? And the plan is down the bottom. It says that the plan does not factor in any increase in the full-time equivalent positions and uses the current FTE composition as its basis for calculations. What is the likelihood of FTE increasing over that period of that plan?
That's what you mean. The intention, as those words say, is that we intend to hold staffing at the level that we have. And we'll do as we have in the past. If there is a need for a extra permanent position, whether full-time or part-time, we will come to council on that or bring it to the next budget, depending. That means that there will be occasions when we still continue to use contractors as we do now, or staff who are on a fixed term contract for a particular work, but the intention is not to grow the staffing. So it's really to demonstrate that the employee costs are remaining quite stable over the 10-year plan. Now, look, the world could change in 3 years' time, but at this point, that's the intention. And so, and every year we'll come back to you with the long-term financial plan to show what happened, and you'll know what's happened because BR1, BR2 and BR3 give you that instant insight. And then again, the budget process each year. So the only new position that came through last year was the water position. There was a proposal for the comms position that didn't come up. We put, as you know, no new positions up for this financial year.
Thank you.
Councillor, as you know, the growth in figures, if you do capital or depreciation and employee costs, the growth is in depreciation in 10 years. That's the real growth in this budget.
On on page 20, under operating surplus and deficit, it says, one of the comments in there is that previously depreciation figures did not entirely reflect the consumption of its assets, which resulted in council not collecting adequate revenue to fund appropriate levels of renewal. I was trying to go back and work out what that actual number was, because I remember it being quite a high number. Does anyone off the top of their head remember what that depreciation level, that depreciation number was that we had to build back into the budget?
For this year, through your
Well, it might have even been the previous one. It was quite a large, scary number, and after an audit, we had to sort of start factoring that back in. I just wanted to.
So we had a presentation, I think, just after Christmas to show that we needed a transition strategy to accommodate the revaluations, particularly in roads, which is our biggest category. I think if we were to go the full hog from day one, I think the number that you're referring to from memory was around about the 8 million mark. We took the approach and workshopped with you the 75% of that as the starting point, and to move through it. There is still one asset management plan that we haven't actually finalised to that degree we need, which is buildings, and we haven't done any revalues on that. So there is still more costs from a depreciation point to come over the coming years that we will bring back to council as we finalise that piece of work. From an ASCOSA's point of view, they want to know that we are actively looking at those things and working through them. And back to your comment, Councillor Roundtree, is that the 3 documents align in terms of the thinking, the wording and the numbers. So that is a piece of work in itself.
So in that sentence then where it says previously depreciation figures did not entirely reflect, I think it didn't, I think entirely is too lean a word. I think it just did not, it even just taken out that the depreciation figures did not reflect the consumptions of the assets. Like, I think we're being too kind on ourselves there because, that
Through your
And we'll continue to.
and through every council in South Australia at this
Australia,
minute.
now, dealing with it in this form. I really would like to see a motion, councillors. I have a recommendation there. Looking. Don't rush me.
I think with, through you, Mayor, the recommendation should say, as councillor Maidment said before, released rather than endorsed.
You're moving that way with that word change?
Yes.
Okay, I'll take that. You're a seconder. Councillor Maidment, thank you. Want to speak, councillor Roundtree?
No, I think I've probably said enough. Thank you.
Councillor Maidment, you want to speak to it?
No, thank you, Mayor. Everything I was going to bring up has been brought up, so.
We're in
Thank you.
debate, councillors. Councillor Peach,
I'd like to speak against the motion. I'm
certainly.
not comfortable with the long-term financial plan and the significant increase in debt over time. I don't know what the answer is, Mr. Mayor, but I don't think this is sustainable. And I find it bizarre that we are going in the wrong direction in order to meet a state government requirement to be sustainable by becoming unsustainable, if I may put it that way. And I have some significant concerns about it. Leave it at that.
Certainly. Anyone else? Go to public consultation, councillors. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment that you said then too, going to public consultation. I think that a document like this, which is complex and has its challenges, and I would hope we have people like Bill to come along and explain to the community, obviously some questions they'd be asking, and if like Councillor Peach and stuff like that, that needs someone like Bill professional answer, that it would come along and to these community meetings. So. But I'm a bit like Councillor Peach. Even though I sit on the audit committee, I still don't like debt, and I had reservations to our plan, the future plan. Thank you.
Councillors, anyone else? My understanding is the Audit and Risk Committee has endorsed this.
Correct.
Councillor O'Hara.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're only moving that it goes to public consultation, aren't we?
That's correct.
And through you, Mayor, I guess it has to, in order to meet the other obligations, it needs to, we've got those dates for community meetings locked in. If we didn't do it now, we would miss those dates for the next.
Absolutely.
We've got a bit of a quandary.
I've been careful now I'm in debate, councillors, and I need some people to speak for or against, unless you've got a question, councillor.
Mr. Mayor, if I may make a clarification of my previous statement.
Yes, certainly can.
I have no issue with releasing this for public consultation. My previous statement still stands on the premise of the document itself.
Okay. I'm still looking for anyone to speak for or against, otherwise I'm going to go to the mover pretty quickly.
Thank you, Mayor.
Closing.
I'm closing, yeah.
Want to say anything more?
I just said it before, like, I think we are obligated in the timeline to do this. We can take it up at our next workshop or meeting after that.
Yep. Councillor, so the motion is as it reads in the agenda with that change again from the word endorsed to released. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Number 3 is the Community Vision, 21-25 Community Vision Midpoint Review. And once again, this is being endorsed as part of the same process in this proposal for public consultation. Councillor Roundtree, you're moving that way.
I am, and I just want to add that those two things. One, thank you whoever put the highlights in red. That was great. It was much easier to read knowing what the changes were. And that we just need to make sure all those documents match up. But I'm
You're a
happy to-
seconder. I'm going to go councillor O'Hara on this one. To speak, councillor? No. Anyone else wish to comment on this midpoint review going to public consultation? Councillor Qualman?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a question. It's regarding environment, which is on page 27, 127 on the electronic means and 27 on the hard copy attachment. And it is pest, plant and feral animal control 2.1. And it says undertake a constant approach to weed control across the district through the implication of council's weed management strategy. Implication, does that mean it's
I thought it may be
taking effect, or it's happened, or we got a plan, or
I
something?
suspect we need to change the spelling, councillor.
Could be implementation, you may think, councillor.
Implementation.
I thought you were going to mention Corellas in that. Reason, but
That's coming later.
they're already here. Don't worry about them coming later. I think that might be a wordsmithing job.
Excuse me, Meg. Sorry, Meg. Are you, councillor, we're asking about the actual strategy or the word in the
The
word?
wording is, does it mean we've got a policy in place already now, a plan, weed management plan?
We generally have, yes, the answer is yes.
That's what I'm just trying to, the wording knocked me around. I just had to ask that question. All right. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else with speaking for or against the motion or with a question, of course? I'm not, I'm going to the mover, close again.
Please.
The council, the recommendation is the midpoint review of the 21 to 25 Community Vision Plan be endorsed for public consultation between the 2nd of May and the 23rd of May inclusive. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Number 4, draft 24-25 schedule of fees and charges. There's been some work done on this by the Working Party Committee over the last 8-10 months, I understand. Correct. Recommendation, councillors.
Mr Mayor, I think there should be one change on it.
You want to move that as part of it, moving the motion?
Yeah, I'll move it to be accepted with the change that the power site for the Canalpin Caravan Park, we increased to $20 instead of 15. Still be the cheapest power site in South Australia.
Okay, is there any particular, people that were on that committee, was there any particular reason why that level was set?
We haven't discussed it as a committee through you, Chair, and I'm not prepared to accept that as part of this motion, because it hasn't been discussed and we can't just throw it in there without any justification.
Excuse me, what power did that committee have?
My recommendation, but we haven't even discussed it.
I'm only interested whether the
Discussing it
committee had discussed it. Councillor Arthur, you moving it with that change?
Yes.
I'm accepting that motion then. Is there a seconder to his motion?
I have a question.
Yes?
While we're increasing at Canalpin, I think there are unpowered sites that we don't charge anything for. And I think we need to start to look at Narung and even the Canalpin unpowered sites. In fact, they all cost us money in terms of our staff going out and managing these spaces, and we don't do anything. It's been on our books to look at for a long, long time. I think it's time we looked at recovery. Now, whether that we put it in a different stage during the year, I'm happy with that, but it's about time we actually see.
So
what we looked at.
your point's just a general statement that we need to consider
Well, it's more than that because
free campsites.
no
as-
free campsites
yeah,
in our
no free-
council area.
Councillors be aware, I've spent some time over the last 6 days on EP and yeah, it'd be fair to say the free campsites are popular.
Sure they
Through
are.
you, Mayor, they also bring a lot into the town.
Well, I'm not here to debate that. I'm
Not
actually
at
on.
Narung.
This is where we need to
No,
have the
I'm making the-
discussion, certainly at Canalpin, the
Yeah.
people that stay in the tents in there.
Mm.
Do
Sure.
get
They
out
don't
there.
pay.
and
Right at this moment, I'm looking for a seconder.
I haven't even had a chance to ask my questions yet. I thought we've just gone
Well,
straight to
I'm
vote.
entitled to look for a seconder. I've got a motion that's being moved, and
Okay.
I'm looking and looking and looking. Otherwise, it's a bit hard to have a debate.
Sure.
Councillor O'Hara is the seconder, thank you. Otherwise, it'll lapse for want of a seconder, otherwise. You don't want to speak, councillor O'Hara? So now I can take a question or anything about the motion, but it is with that minor change.
Mr Mayor, can I speak on the motion?
You will.
I won't be
you-
closing,
you
I'll be
had-
speaking.
No, well, you really haven't spoke to it yet, councillor, I'll give you that. Yeah.
I just think it's time we upgraded our charges. We spent some money there. As far as councillor Mann with Narung, it's been brought up quite a few times about putting a system in exactly the same as they have down the Coorong. But the reason it was not done many times ago, said there wasn't efficient mobile service there.
Do now.
So,
Maybe
with
soon.
the new mobile service, we'll be able to look at that.
Mhm.
But it's not up to us as a council to be subsidising tourism to the full extent. You know, when you go there, you've got a $250,000 unit there and they can't pay $20 a night, there's something wrong. And I would also ask later on, we'll have to actually get the costings of running the caravan park. I know we've got, like so many electronic hits, but what are they for sites and what are they for showers? There's two different hits. I asked that question of one of the staff and they just hit. So we need to look back at how many because if the hits that we are putting into our document are right, we should have a fairly large increase in income on the budget, like about $4,500 a month.
So a hit doesn't necessarily mean they turn up.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, all right. Councillor Roundtree, you speaking for or against?
Thanks. I'll be speaking against this one with the amendment from councillor Arthur. I think.
Not an amendment, it is the motion.
Motion. Canalpan has really benefited from the caravan park. The pool committee would argue that they get a lot of people coming in from that caravan park and they spend money at the pool. They buy ice creams at the pool. There's a lot of people there, and there's certainly at the Progress Association meetings and at the other meetings that I've attended in Canalpan, that caravan park now has become quite a positive thing for the community. And any steps that might inadvertently reduce the number of people that want to stay there and bring their money to Canalpan, I will vehemently vote against, because I think this has been such a good thing for the whole town. And for that extra, and I don't know where you get $4,000 from a $5 increase over what we had a good month last month, but it's sitting around averaging 160 powered sites a month, 150, 160 powered sites a month. I think is short-sighted and something that the whole Fees and Charges Committee should at least debate before it becomes part of this motion. So I will be voting against it.
Okay. Who else? Councillor O'Hara, you as the seconder? Yep.
Yeah, I just think, I don't think there's anyone out there sort of that would be against paying $20 for a bad site. Caravan people, I go out of my way every time I go to Canalpan to just see how many are in there, and Lisa's right, there's been quite a few in there the last month or so, but I think they'd be happy to part with $20, I'm sure. I mean, some of the East Coast, $100 a night, some of the South Coast, Victoria and that are $80 a night for a pad site, so $20 still pretty light.
Councillor Peet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor, if I may, I just note that the Canalpan Swimming Pool Committee hasn't had an opportunity yet to put their suggestions forward, which they will do as part of the public consultation that was brought up at the meeting last week, week before. So I just wanted that on the record.
They're there.
I think
Yeah.
we've put them in.
Oh, you
actually.
have put them in? Okay, cool. And the other thing I'd just say, from a committee point of view, there is a number of things we still haven't dealt with, including the waste transfer station fees and so forth. That's only gone up on an index basis at the moment, by the looks of this, not had the complete review on it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else speaking for or against the motion? Well, councillor Arthur, you'll get to close.
Close.
Motion is the recommendation with, I suppose, one variance, and that is to change from from $15 per night to $20 per night at the Canalpin Caravan Park, the Howard site. Everyone understands that clearly? Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. It's carried with 6 councillors voting for it and councillor Roundtree voting against it. Thank you, councillors. Number 5, Audit and Risk Committee extensive independent memberships terms. See, are happy to continue as the recommendation says. Councillor Corman, you wish to move that?
Thank you.
Thank you for that. For a seconder, councillor Bland, both being our representatives on that committee. Councillor Corman, do you want to speak to it at all?
Oh,
Is as is?
just
Pretty good.
really, Mr. Mayor, the 2 competent, good accountants doing a good job.
That'd be my notes. I sometimes attend in the back, and they would be adding good commentary and good direction, I would have thought. Anyone else wish to speak for or against? There's not, you close.
Close.
Put the motion as it reads. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 6, revocation of former community grant related policies. Just the CEO, just give me a quick description of what happened.
To you, Mayor. As you will remember, at the last
Thanks,
council
Bill.
meeting, a fairly comprehensive new community grants and sponsorship policy came to council and was endorsed. Once we had a good look at the existing one, rather than saying one was a replacement of the other, the view was that we should actually revoke the existing one, just because of the significant number of changes in the last one. So this is really, I suppose, from an administrative point of view, just removing one policy because it has now been replaced by another.
So councillors, as you're aware, we did not have a workshop today around this subject. For the financial year we're in, that will be
That doesn't change.
recommendation, the next monthly meeting, but it will be decided upon
This-
this
correct.
policy. So you're aware that the policy will still be used, the 23-24 financial year's decisions
Based on the policy. as
based on
issued.
that policy, but then it will be revoked on the 1st of July. That's what this intent is. I have a mover, please. Councillor Peach, you're the mover.
So moved.
You're a seconder. Councillor Roundtree, you're seconding. Want to speak, Councillor Peach?
No, happy to close.
Well, that was quick. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Yes, second. Number 7, Audit and Risk Committee minutes of the special meeting held on the 2nd of April. There's a recommendation, councillors. Someone move that way, please. Councillor Bland, I saw your hand. Councillor Corman. Any discussion? There is none. You're closing?
Closed.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 8, Audit and Risk Committee minutes of the special meeting held on the 11th. The 11th,
Have a question, Mr. Mayor?
certainly, before we start.
The recommendation to endorse subject to suggestions from the committee, I just wondered if we might have a brief summary of those suggestions.
Through you, Mayor, and I'll call on my 2 councillors who are also in the room, but Councillor Bland was,
Man wasn't there.
as Councillor Coleman said, most of them are around wording. An example of that was the suggestion that we expand. We had comments around the risks from the strategic risk register, but the chair's suggestion was that we made them more overt, so you will see an expanded commentary around the risks for the organisation in the long-term financial plan. The focus for both meetings was only the ABP and the long-term financial plan, and this, well, once the financials were discussed and finished with, the commentary was around, or the focus was on the commentary in the documents. And so we have accommodated, and I think Councillor Coleman also alluded to one where we talked about the difficulties over the next couple of years in terms of the long-term financial plan, but also the positive things that were happening as well. So it was really first and foremost around the commentary.
I think also from the previous meeting was also about making sure it was aligning aligning the plans and the purpose to be spelled out.
For a mover. Councillor Bland is the mover, thank you. There a seconder? Councillor Coleman, thank you. Is there any debate, councillors? It's receival of minutes. There is none. Closing.
Sorry, closed.
You
I'm moving on.
put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 9, Tintinara Community Gymnasium Committee minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of March. Councillor Peaton, I don't need to remind you, but I'm going to.
No, on further reflection, in relation to the motion, I don't have a conflict of interest. I'll just point out that one of the new committee members is indirectly related to me. But in relation to the motion and my being at the meeting, I don't think there actually is a conflict. I just want to point that out.
Yep, thank you. It's up to you. There's a recommendation though. Councillor Roundtree, you're moving?
I'll move it and I have some comments as well.
Right, let's get a seconder first.
I'll second that. Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Roundtree.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. When I attended the gym committee meeting recently, there were a few things that were brought up that I was a bit concerned about. So the gym committee set a date for the inspection of the equipment. The lady who was assigned to be there waited, but no one turned up. The inspection ended up being done without the input or assistance of the gym committee. And they feel had they been included, they could have actually advised on some of that equipment that was no longer being used and they could happily get rid of. So their concern was that there hadn't been a lot of consultation and they had expressed no enthusiasm for an outdoor gym. It was raised, and for a whole range of safety and personal reasons, they weren't comfortable with that as an option. They also commented that the operating manual was taken by a staff member with the intention of reviewing it, but that as of the date of that meeting, there hadn't been any revised documents sent back to them. So I think the committee themselves were feeling like maybe they could have been more involved in some of the process, certainly around the inspections.
Just trying to find out elements of what you're inquiring about here.
Through you, Mayor, I think I'll have to take those questions on notice. I know that we weren't aware of this meeting happening, so we maybe, if we had, we could have come and talked about the things that were important. We also have a staff member working with the committee now and also with the Action Club around, as you know from the workshop that we had, what are the other options in terms of running that gym at Tintinara. So, but those two specific examples of the operating manual and the inspection, I'm sorry, I don't have any background on. I'll have to take it on notice.
Thank you for taking it on notice. I think it's particularly relevant when we had that report that talked about some of the condition assessments of the equipment. That could have been if they had consulted, might not need half the equipment that's there, sort of thing. Anyway, thank you for that.
Councillor Hara.
Can I just ask what is the outcome from the motion that was moved, but Jonathan moved, Councillor Peach moved? There's three dot points there. Can we have an update on what's happened with them?
Through you, the councillors who are there may want to comment, but As I mentioned, we are continuing to work through what the issues are because the advice, as you know, from our insurer is that this is probably one of our most high-risk assets in terms of community use. So we are trying to navigate a way that, and Councillor Roundtree has just made a comment about the outdoor gym, but trying to find a solution that allows the gym to operate maybe with or without council involved in that. But that's a process that's still ongoing.
Mr Mayor, if I may provide comment on that. Through you, Mayor, point 3, I don't think council members have actually seen any further advice since that motion was moved from the insurer. I certainly don't recall, and apologies if we have, and I haven't recalled. I think the other thing, and I concur with Councillor Roundtree's points because I was going to raise those as well. There was the other thing that I was slightly concerned about was that there had been some conversations that had definitely occurred with the Action Club regarding the gym, but the gym committee members themselves had not been contacted at that point in time. So they did appear to be somewhat in the dark as to where they were sitting.
You may, and I'll only assume here, but I suspect it was around the actual lease and what sort of arrangements with the building. But again, I would have to take them on notice. I'm sorry, Councillor Peach.
And Mr Mayor, if I may just mention too, subsequent to this, I believe the Action Club has been successful in getting a grant to help improve the building from the Bendigo Bank this week.
Good news. I have a mover and a seconder. We received the minutes as per the recommendation. Is there anyone else? Councillors? There is no one else?
Oh, please.
Thank you. Put the motion as it reads. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. I propose we have a 10 or 12-minute break, please. Back here at 6:40, please. Thank you, everyone. We resume at 6:40, roughly. 11.1, Office of the Chief Executive Officer's Information Report. Someone move that recommendation, please. Councillors Foreman and Roundtree. Questions? Councillors, questions? Or Councillor Foreman, sorry.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. For you to the CEO, March the 1st, general meeting with the CEO of the Bend Motorsport Park, Cullen Bend.
On the page, sorry, councillor.
Oh,
What date?
65 on your report on the hard copy, general meeting with the CEO of the Bend Motorsport Park, Cullen Bend.
For you, Mayor, that was just a general update. We've undertaken to meet probably once or twice a year. So it's really just an update of what they're doing, what we're doing, and no more, no less.
No more news? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions around that report? There is none. I close. The motion, all those in favour? Those against, well, I'm taking that as carried unanimously, councillors. Number 2, Community and Corporate Information Report. I'll move that way, please. Councillor Roundtree's moving. Your seconder? Councillor Maben, I think I saw your hand.
Yeah, both, whichever.
One I thought I saw, and that was
Yeah,
you.
it was me. Yeah, I did.
Any questions to the acting director? Can I? Sorry, I'm just looking at the photos of the phone towers. Are they operational yet, or where are they at?
Through you, Mayor, so Telstra have advised that Sappan haven't quite finished their work. Sappan have advised that they actually have finished their work. So as of today, we wrote to them to say, can we please get some clarity about which is the actual position?
Right, I'll revert back to the number 2. Councillor O'Hara, you'll need to be our phone checker at Narang, I think.
Sorry?
Our phone checker at Narang when it gets live.
Well, I went out the other day, I couldn't even find it.
Like the tower or a signal?
Yeah.
The middle of the old oval.
Oh. Are there any questions in relation to Community Corporate Information Report? Sorry. Councillor Bland.
On the mosquito management program, I'm just trying to find it here. In relation to Meningie, am I right in saying that we are only putting any of the trapping near the near what is referred to as Meningie HS, which I'm assuming is hot. Sorry? Yeah, I'm going to say 76 on the, but not on the hard copy. And I'm a bit surprised given that a lot of our walking path is really close to the back of the old CFS shed and around that edge there, where there will be intense mosquitoes in comparison to across, when I think HS, they refer to the high school instead of area school. They used to have 2 sites, now we're down to 1. I'm surprised.
Through you, Mayor, we'll have to take that on notice, councillor.
Really, because where we have our water coming out behind the CFS, there's a lot of reed base there where people are walking. I'm surprised that it's only at that spot.
Through you, Mayor, and I did reassure the acting director we wouldn't get a mosquito question.
No, I never do that with me, I'm sorry. You'll always get a mosquito. I'm always down there.
There's no more questions. You close.
Closed.
Put the recommendation, all those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Number 3 would be roads and infrastructure, I would hope. Infrastructure and assets. What's happening to our naming process? We'll get a little bit jumbled. It's a dual job, Travis. Come on, move that way, please. Councillor Roundtree.
Also have, I should just have a question, but I'm
You're
happy to
moving
move
as
it.
well, aren't you?
Yeah, I'll move
Happy
it as well,
days,
but I have a
yeah.
question.
Yeah, your question is, I'll take it now.
So, patrol grading update, noted decrease in kilometres graded during March is due to vacancies and staff leave. Are we using contractors to get around the issue of not having enough people? How are we managing that?
Through you, Mayor, I'll answer at the top level and then if Travis wants to add anything. Yes, we have been using contractors, but they won't fill the gap completely.
Brad, we want to add wherever we go with grader drivers?
Yes, I can. To re-advertise for that position, so, yeah, we have been using contractors to fill the gap slightly down the Tintinara area, but not completely.
Councillors, if you know some grader drivers that are available to work for this good council, please tell us.
Further to that, Mr Mayor, through you to the CEO, we've only got half our staff now, is that right? We've only got 3 maintenance drivers, or
We
instead of 6
Trial grader drivers we're talking about.
trial graded drivers?
So we had one person resign towards the end of last year.
Yep.
We have one person retiring who finishes in the next week or
We'll
so.
we'll acknowledge that with Thursday morning in a small ceremony.
And we
Yeah.
have one staff member who was off with a shoulder issue that may turn into an operation. And apart from that, we also have one on just regular scheduled leave. So it has been a difficult time finding, and the recruitment didn't provide any suitable candidates. So yes, you're correct.
Well, it's been mentioned that, you know, like, I don't know where it come from, but it's been mentioned now, we've got no money left. The council's got no money left for reshedding
No,
or
councillor,
patching.
No,
no.
Well, why aren't we doing it? Why aren't we getting a contractor in to do it?
Well, I don't know
Because,
who.
no, like, I sent those,
Stop. I don't know who's mentioning this. Not true. It's no particular secret that we have a shortage of plant operators. As just about everyone that wants to employ people. Say we haven't got a budget is unfair.
well, may I suggest, as I sent the emails through to the CEO regarding the roads I went
Yeah,
around.
yeah,
last
I've
Sunday.
seen that, yeah.
And I suggest you get in your car and go down and drive them, and then come back and tell me how good they are.
Well, I'm not arguing
They
that.
are disgusting
Sure, and I've.
and dangerous.
So councillor Rob, as you may have listened, I had a bit of a trip in the West Coast. I would suggest that virtually nowhere in rural South Australia at the moment are unsealed roads in good nick. It's been a particularly dry period for a lot of areas, and they're particularly rough. I'm not debating that. The point is, we have got the money, we haven't got staff. And we've just got to get them organised, I suppose. I'm looking at the acting director, like anything. And he had a limited capacity to do things, and things don't get done as quick as some would like.
May I-
I just need a second, Corey, sorry, as well for this as well.
But it's nothing new at the present moment. We haven't got staff though, because.
No,
you know, I
it
think
is
Councillor
particularly
Bates
focused
would
on the,
agree that
particularly.
Grader sat out his place 3
Yeah.
out of 7
So
days.
we've been dealing with some issues for a long time in this council, like any council with personnel. You know, and this is a changing in the culture in Australia of employment. You know, a lot of people in private enterprise would happily have more employees if they could find them at the moment. So we're in no different category.
We're no different, but if you're a private enterprise, you find a way around it.
Well,
We can't
I'm looking
We
at the
can't
business.
sit on our hands.
No, well, so councillor, as you would know, we have a limited budget and I'm sure you would like,
Yep.
you would enforce that. So I'm trying to sort of work my way through how we're going to manage this, but I'm going to leave your statement aside. I'm looking for a seconder because you're the mover, sorry. Councillor Harris, the seconder. I'll go back to councillor Roundtree now.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on the grader driver requirements, is there a spot where you have a list of what someone needs to be able to do to be a grader driver? Is that easy to access?
through you, Mayor, we tried to be as broad as possible in the advertisement because generally if you can drive one big plant, we can teach you to drive the other.
The training is involved.
We still didn't attract suitable applicants.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Peach.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I too have questions, but I'll move on from that. Tintinara Aerodrome construction, just note in the report here, there's talk of new fencing going in. I note that I sent an email through last month in late March, I'm just trying to find the date, sorry, which was responded to in terms of the scope of works being done at the airstrip. can I just have an update on when the fencing came into the overall scheme?
Oh, so through you, I will take it on notice, but in terms of background, the contract for the scope of works was slightly under, and the fencing is needing to be done, so we've put the fencing into it, basically. But I can give you much more detail. That's a very simplistic view of what it is, but I can give you a,
I think there were issues of stock on the airfield at some stage last 6 months. Is that right?
There may be, through Mr Mayor, understanding that my query, I suppose, comes from what sort of fencing we're putting in and how it impacts the area that may be rezoned.
and we're cognizant of all that.
I'd love that to come to the elected members if that's possible, please.
Councillor Maidment.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, on page 84, the historically important items that were removed from the Tailem Bend accident train, I'd like to know what they were and where they are now. Please.
Can you repeat that question, councillor Maidment?
The historical
On
items.
page
yeah.
84, the Tailem Bend team assessed and removed historically important items from a Tailem Bend accident train in preparation for their future removal, meaning the train's removal, I gather. Do we know what those historically important items were and where they are now?
Well, just at the top level, I can't tell you what the items were. Councillor Coleman may know what they are. And they will be either over at the railway station or in a depot at this point.
Okay. thank
Councillor
you.
Quam, you help us, given your long time
Yeah.
interest in this area.
Yes, thank you. As involved with Tailem Rail and involved with the restoration of the railway station and of course worked there. I've got a call from Kelly Yench wanting me to go down there and actually identify what was possibly from the railway station that was stored in one of the green vans down there. So I went down and pointed out what was what and what was removed and that what should be still kept back, which was original furniture of the station, and the community facilities then moved it into the old goods shed, and so it's been stored there now as we speak. Okay, that's what I believe.
Thank you.
Other questions? The Bland.
I have one, and that is in relation to the Meningie Skate Park, and it's the picture here that reminded me. The area that you see in front of the non-painted and the new panels that were put in was in fact originally brand new lawn put in front of it. Now it is still a dust bowl, and it's just very sad to see. So either, I'm assuming the irrigation has now been fixed, or it's not working particularly well. But we did lawn all of that area along that line.
We're looking at the acting director.
I'll just leave it sorted out.
Yes.
Is there an explanation?
Through to Mayor, yeah, that's correct. Unfortunately, the turf didn't take hold there. We have had the irrigation system checked. The team down there are monitoring that weekly and checking for irrigation direction. The turf didn't take hold, so we're looking at other options such as seeding.
So my follow-up question on that will be, is that programmed in for when?
That's underway now.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? There being no more, it appears. You'll close, councillor.
Closed.
Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Next item will be questions with notice. Councillor Arthur, you have a very large group. I trust we have had an attempt at us answering them all.
Fairly long list of questions regarding the answers. A bit disappointed in some of the answers, to be quite honest with you. Question one, and with the leave of with the chamber, I'd like these questions to be noted and the answers noted, or if they are unable to be noted, to be included in the minutes for the next meeting.
So
I'll second that, Mr.
Do we
Mayor.
have to,
If they have to be taken
we
on
have to do them
notice, give the
individually
answer.
or per item on afterwards? Oh, we'll do it one by one.
Right, the first one is $159,000 for the donation contributions. This other community support, $70,285. Could you break that? Firstly tells nothing where it goes.
Through you, Mayor, there would be several, if not many lines sitting under that. So, thank you. Predominantly LRCIP Phase 4 Community Grants money, $70,000, which is what the council passed a motion for probably before Christmas now.
Try that again.
LRCIP Phase 4 Community Grants money, 70,000.
Community grants.
LRCIP.
So when we pay it out, so it comes in through one area and goes out the other. So that's,
Okay, righto. The next one is the next professional services and legal. We've got 160,000 for sustainability. Do we have a breakdown of how that is worked?
through you, Mayor, we have, basically, again, it's around the grant, the LAP funding and
Seems a lot of these are funded by grants, aren't they?
that's possibly the case, but
Yeah.
this is what's shown in those actual items under those categories. We have to still break it up.
Asset service, management service, $1,000. Would that be ASICs and those sort of people?
We don't have an extra line under that, but I would, if I was a guessing person, say yes, but we'll check that out.
Yes, please, if you could. Now, the next one is unsealed roads. Sorry. I'll get there in a minute. There's something here. Oh, it's also in that legal, we've got an amount up the top for professional services of 15,000 for governance. And then in the legal, we've got another amount for $23,755 for governance. Why would they, two different items, one item be in two different places?
It could be depending on what the intention of that legal advice was at the time, how it's divided up. Oh, thank you. So one of them is professional services, which is the first amount you talked about, councillor, and the second one is legal. So they're just divided up depending on what the activity is.
Sorry.
Councillor, with the one under professional services, under governance, the 15,204 you mentioned, I'll just go through what's actually in there. Audit and Risk Committee members' sitting fees, Penguin Botanic Gardens strategic planning, contributions to the Murray-Darling Association, executive officer position, so that totals 15,000. So that is basically the biggest items in that category.
Members' sitting fees.
Correct, for the Audit and Risk Committee.
Oh, the audit, I was going to say that, right. No
Councillor
worries.
Peach.
So, sorry to interrupt, Mr. Mayor, sorry, councillor. Just a question regarding sustainability under professional services, as to what that is.
That was the one councillor Arthur just wrote, asked about again. That was delivery of some grant funding under the LAP and sustainability projects.
The mainly LAP associated.
Right, the repairs and maintenance budget, I asked at the last meeting where the grading budget was within, and I was told in the repairs and maintenance budget. So we've got an unsealed road patching, $252,000. And roads grading, control grading of $59,000. And the plant operation of $214,000. Now, they all go together to make the maintenance grading program?
They would be part of it, yes.
Because, you know, we've got three graders that work 12 hours a day, probably 6 days a week, probably using about 15 litres of diesel an hour
We just need to get to the point,
at
councillor.
$1.50, that's nearly $5,000 a week. So that's $240,000 a year just on diesel, without wages. So when we've got these costs for roadworks, aren't wages and machinery depreciation all costs into it?
No, only in the CapEx budget. If Bill was here, he could expand on that, but that is not how it's done.
So that's all we have to spend on waiting for six operators.
This is what we've spent
What we have
year to
spent.
date, so it's 9 months worth of a 12-month budget.
Yeah.
So if you extrapolate that out to 12 months, that's pretty much where you'll land.
Yeah, and that was what my question was, what it was for the 12 months, but that didn't
Yep.
come out. Okay, we'll take that as, and the next one is the, oh, where are we? Consumables, yeah. We've got roads unsealed, patching once again, 21,000.
But that's rubble, councillor.
Sorry?
That's
Rubble?
material, rubble, material, termed.
Roads unsealed patching, that's material, is it?
It's rubble, yep,
Okay.
pretty much.
Roads unsealed renewal, $219,000.
Unsealed roads, rubble.
Rubble.
Yep.
Why wouldn't we call it rubble?
Because
Does it might be always rubble?
Because if you look in our budget for this year, rubble has got no expenditure on it.
sorry, say that again,
If
councillor.
you look at the budget figures for this year, rubble's got no figure, no
That's because
expenditure.
it's shown under
So it's
consumable.
going under something else, so it's still in the budget as rubble.
Of course, yep.
Okay.
Councillor, we're getting very technical.
No, it's not. I think the people need to.
Through Mr Mayor, I
Because
fully
I've been
support that.
asked,
So we're in that difficult area.
and these are not just my questions, these are.
Yeah, I understand that. Understand that. But we're not comparing the same apple each day here. That's one of the problems with these debates or these questions. Some parts of that are in some parts of each answer. Now, whether I wish that it was simpler or a different debate, but by continuing to try and find something suits some argument, I don't know we achieve a result, which is probably a road graded or whatever.
I'm trying to find
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Well, can I ask you, Mr Mayor, did you know that 213,000 was rubble? Did you
Well-
know how much we were spending on rubble a year?
Whether I know or not is not really the point I'm
Well-
trying to get to. Point is, when we look at the cost per kilometre is probably the important
Is the
part
point.
of any of our agenda items.
Through you, Mayor, I think that you not knowing or us not knowing specifically is probably the point. When the roads are something we get asked about a lot, and I think Councillor Arthur gets probably more of those questions on a Saturday, maybe Councillor O'Hara. I think being able to take out the ambiguity with some of the words so that it is really clear, so we don't even have to ask the question, is probably where we head to. And I think it's where
So,
Councillor Arthur's coming from, and if
I
you didn't know the
understand that.
answer, I didn't know that answer until then either.
So if, for a discussion with the ratepayer, we need to know the unit cost per hour on average of a patrol grader or,
Oh, no,
I-
I don't think that's what Councillor Arthur is.
well, once you get down to breaking the figure up into several categories, you get into a very difficult area.
I think the answers that were given were, it wasn't mentioned in there that it was rubble. Had the word RUBBLE been written on that line, it would have not been as ambiguous, or road construction material or something would have been better than what was written there, because all it's done is when you're trying to compare things, is created questions which are easily answered, but we could have avoided the question in the first place had the ambiguity been removed from the answer. It's quite.
And so our line
quite
items in the
sensible.
uniform presentation of accounts.
Okay, we keep getting that
aren't-
thrown at us. We don't get it.
Councillor, there's about 2,000 lines in the finances.
But when the question was asked by Councillor Arthur, in order to give him what he needed, and I think it was quite clear with his question what he was getting at, wouldn't it have been more simpler to have just written more clearly what it was, and we wouldn't be having this debate?
So Councillor Arthur didn't actually ask about rubble.
He asked about the breakdown of expenses, and had the word rubble been included in there, he wouldn't have asked that question.
Could I suggest, with all due respect, that councillor Arthur, if you want to know how much we spend on rubble, ask that question direct. Otherwise, I have staff who go through this, and it probably took 4 hours of one person to actually compile this, as you said in yourself, that's quite a bit of work there. But if you want to know how much rubble is specifically, please let me know. Or a specific question about one of those 2,000 lines. It's probably easier than me trying to second guess what you're actually looking for.
Well, I never asked the question about rubble. I didn't want to know about the rubble. But it's got CapEx, Unsealed Roads Renewable, $219,000. So $219,000, would like to know. And the ratepayers would like to know what it is. Now, if it's rubble, it's rubble.
Is it predominantly rubble?
Yeah. And if it was down as rubble, I probably wouldn't have got the question. Next one is the labour or employees cost, and the very evasive answer there. And also, why haven't the vehicle allowances been included? Doesn't have to. I didn't expect it on a individual basis, but I would have expected that there would have been a number.
So I think,
Because I think the ratepayer is entitled to know who's got vehicle allowances. And, you know, seeing there was, not that many years ago, we had a big try at cutting back the number of vehicles. And it appears that maybe they've been swapped over to allowances.
and that's per the policy, councillor. You
Right.
have,
For the policy.
per the policy.
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the policy is. The ratepayer is entitled, and so is an elected member is entitled to know
So
what we're spending on these.
in relation to the vehicle allowances, what do you wish to exactly know? How much is part of an employment package for some? Part of an employment package,
And is that a cost to council?
yes, but what you see elsewhere
Well-
is the cost of that package.
My question, Mr Mayor, was employees' costs include labour-related expenditure such as salaries and wages, superannuation, training costs, staff uniforms, workers' compensation, income protection. Does not need to include labour related to capital expenditure projects. Oh, hang on, I'm the wrong one. Could you provide the base down for the following? The base salary, EBI increase, which is this year, leave loading, long service leave, income protection, superannuation, work cover, vehicle allowance, full private vehicle use, limited private vehicle use and staff uniform. That was a question I asked on behalf of ratepayers. They want to know what our total expenditure on staff is, and as that was the answer I was given. Uniforms, 20,000, vehicle allowance as per motor vehicles, full private motor vehicle use by 2. It does not include limited private vehicle use, yet I think there's 2 staff that I know that have got.
We discuss staff in this chamber. I just
And-
staff who you know.
And all the rest, and so that was a total to make up 6.5 million, because what it basically boils back to is people are asking, and since that the capital adjustment was made last year to the salaries, of people are saying, well, why isn't that in the salaries package? Why is it outside the salaries package? So that was my question.
Trying to work out, councillor, my understanding is, and I'm looking at effective, the total draft 24/5 salaries and operational budget amounts to 6.5 million. Specific costs as noted above are in that part. That's the costs included in that. That's what changed when we changed over the accounting system. Some costs which were sometimes held elsewhere are now held within that total budget. Tell me when I'm wrong on the CEO.
No.
So that's where what some people perceive was a very quick growth changed by a different category of.
But this started off, Mr Mayor, in last year, when we had an adjustment to salaries of about $600,000 because of capital
No,
allocations. And then there is in the review here just recently, there was a bit down about $220,000 is now capital. Now, I don't care,
Yeah.
the ratepayer doesn't care what it
so they're
is.
not in addition, councillors. Sometimes we take parts of what's in a total to answer a question.
Well,
It
if it
shouldn't be then
wasn't-
extrapolated that it's come back out as an addition.
And Mr Mayor, if it wasn't extra, why did the year before, we adjusted by 600,000.
Because of the change in category.
So I'll give you an example. So Travis's wages as a director, part of that is capitalised. So he's on a salary of, say, 150,000 a year, don't quote me, that's a round number. And part of his salary is directly capitalised against a project. So when you think about your financials, you've got your operational, which is one set of numbers, you've got your capital, which is another set of numbers, and so you need to split those two apart because some of it is capitalised. If you capitalise some money, it doesn't affect your surplus or deficit, and it stays in the profit and loss in the old language, or in the balance sheet in the old language as well. So it's, I'm just, sorry, councillor, but I'm struggling to know what you actually want over and above that.
I just wanted the actual total wages, salaries and allowances that we pay.
So that's the 6,550, oh,
And that
6,552
includes
million.
everything. That includes your vehicle motor vehicle policy allowances, your base salary, all those items I asked for.
That's it, there.
Right. Waste management services is the next one. I haven't seen any workshops on either of those, particularly because we did ask for one on the waste management stations to have a look into the expenses of that, but we haven't
Well,
seen anything.
councillor,
We've been asked to, and we've passed today the fees and charges.
Yes, but the committee, as you may have remembered just a bit earlier, said that they hadn't got to reviewing the waste management depots, if I remember the discussion in the room a bit early tonight. So at this stage, they're simply CPI'd, if I remember the discussion a while ago.
Okay. And then just the last one is the contractors, discretionary and statutory, the residential organic and recycling waste management, is that purely the roadside pickup? Or is that roadside pickup plus the waste load?
I'm going to, through you, Chair, I don't exactly know if those two are combined in there. I'd need to take that on notice. I'm assuming it's the whole solo contract. I can't tell you that.
Because there was also under contractors discretionary, $197,736 for waste transfer stations. So I wonder if we could have some clarification on that, please.
Hang on. We may have it here. Just for a moment, councillor. No, we will have to take that one on notice.
And just the other one within the contractor's discretionary, I love this other, $94,000 and other. I wonder if you could give us a little bit of a rundown on him.
So I've got a shopping list here. Caravan park, CWMS, water scheme, community development, halls, cemeteries, tourism, residual waste, waste disposal facilities, stormwater, street lighting, footpath and curbing, roads, records and WHS. So it's really a aggregate of quite a few other things. And they,
Yeah, like you said, CWMS, you've got CWMS here under contractors, statutory contractors, discretionary. What's the difference?
correct. It could be depending on why the contractor's involved. Can you provide any more?
Take it on notice.
I'll take it on notice. Thank you.
Thanks for your patience.
I'm taking that as we've completed that. Questions on notice.
So
12.
sorry,
Sorry,
we can answer that one about the one you said, was it asset services? The answer is yes. I said I wasn't too sure. I'd take a stab at it, but it's definitely that, rightly.
questions with notice, without notice, sorry, councillors. 12-2. Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As I alluded to before, my question about notice is regarding what's the latest action council's taking in the management of Little Corellas. Been hearing a lot of concern from the community, the damage being caused to our long established trees, you know, with the hazard or the threat of killing result of these birds, and also the huge mess that. So where are we at in dealing with this issue, please?
For you, Mayor, we've done a couple of things. We still continue to use a combination of the sound gun and regular gun. Given the volume using regular guns is probably useless. We had a flock one day in Tailem Bend of about 4 flocks of about 10,000 birds all up. So any lethal shooting would be almost useless. We have also written and had discussions with the Landscape Board, who have some interest in this as well in terms of their responsibility, and we have also written direct to Jew, who have overall responsibility, asking what their intentions or what their strategies are over the long term. To say they're a menace is one thing, but the feedback we also get on our Facebook page is that as many people who hate them, there is as many people who like them, which is hard to believe, I know, but and I would suggest, and the Mayor might back me up about when he was visiting everywhere else, but we went to...
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. There was in Herbray, a couple of weeks ago, I went and passed, it looked like a snowfield. So,
So they are a native species, councillor. The state government therefore has the say in how they may be controlled, and along with things like the fur seals, showing a very large reluctance to do anything.
Don't hold your breath.
So we are in an interesting dilemma about how control scaring may work. We've written more letters to several I've endorsed to different departments around this. I was at Melrose Oval last evening and they'd stripped that place beautifully. So they're everywhere. So we can only go on lobbying our state politicians on this particular subject. But I do reinforce the CEO's point. There is as part of our community doesn't want us to deal with it in probably what would be a normal way. Councillor Roundtree.
Has the council ever spoken or put forward to, whether it's Landscape Board or whatever, but done a study on what actually attracts these birds to migrate here every year? Because it's not all year round that they cause this problem. If it is water, then maybe we need to look at,
Rain in the river.
no, maybe ways to move them on somewhere else.
so through you, Mayor,
Like a study on the actual on what drives these birds to do what they do.
so Tailem Bend in particular, probably Meningie as well, perfect habitat. We have tall trees that they love. We have grain that falls out of the viteria sites and of trucks and that, so there's plenty of food. And we have the water with the river. So until they start mating, which is when they disappear and then start to destroy the cliff banks, they hang around. Scaring them off really will just send them across the river to Jervois, who then
Send them back.
send them back. We had none at Wellington East, so we were very conscious of any scare tactics we did in Tailem Bend. We didn't want to have the same problem in Wellington East. And Meningie didn't have them at the same time as Tailem
Not as
Bend.
much.
So scaring them, you'll do it once or twice and then they're pretty clever birds. They'll decide that that noise is not going to hurt them, so they just hang around. And I watched that with the staff who were doing the mowing. First time that I watched them, the mowing, the birds took off. Second and third days mowing, well, they couldn't have been less interested and just sat there and did what they did. So,
Is there any sort of sterilisation programs that can be looked into?
They're natives. Unless till the state government wishes to deal with it, we will be left with this dilemma.
they're not treated as pests and they're not treated as, they're called an overabundant species. And there was some work a couple of years ago before my time where some universities, and I can't remember, talked about how you would interrupt the breeding program, which I tend to think is the only way to actually manage the group. But as the Mayor said, there seems to be little appetite in that direction and no evidence of that I've seen to date.
I imagine there'll be a discussion on Thursday at MRLTA, to be quite honest. I'm sorry, Councillor O'Hara's ahead of you.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. They do move on though. I mean, they're a very small problem at Meningie at the moment.
Yeah.
Because we shot them
You can do that.
scare
them.
gunned them.
Scare gun them.
And they do go away. I mean, I got an old tin bin that I built on and they land in the tree in front of my place and it seems to work. We have had a problem with them this year.
Just don't like it.
I kept telling them, go to Tailem Bend.
Yeah. Councillor Blair.
Just a question around what can farmers who surround these towns do in relation to assisting in some of that management? I know that there's all sorts of stories, but can they assist? Because we can't put it on our land.
You can shoot them.
They're going to poison
Shoot them,
it.
not protected.
Sorry?
They're not.
And they're not protected.
Shoot
My
as many as you like.
yeah, through you, Mayor, I understand that what farmers do on their own property is entirely up to the farmers. We don't come into that discussion at all.
But there would be, besides shooting, other ways of controlling them on their farmland,
Poison.
which would then perhaps assist the community. And particularly, I look at out the front here at the loss of those magnificent trees.
Mm.
And, you know, that's not, when they die, they're not replaceable overnight. They're going to take,
So
I
until
don't know
such,
how old they are,
until
but
such time as the state government authorises some form of more direct action against them,
I think I'd be asking the farmers to have a talk to us. Leave it alone.
I think what
State government's not going to do it.
I think what you said, Mr Mayor, that some people like them and some hate them. Millicent, they loved them, but now they absolutely hate it because they've virtually taken Millicent over.
so there's anything in local government, be careful what you wish for. Is there anyone else on the Corella subject? I'm glad we've had a broad discussion around it. It's a conundrum, no different to the fur seals.
And we know they did nothing there and it's still a major problem.
That's right. And
Everyone should
I
have-
recall making a presentation probably 4.5 years ago to a parliamentary committee around this.
and they're still a
Around
major
this, and this was being mentioned. Okay. I'm on questions without notice. Councillor, I don't know if we answered your question at all.
I'll just, if I could just finish off and make the comment, when people drive around town and Ben, I suggest you go past the intersection of Webb and Mott and Moore Street, absolute mess. Thank you.
Councillor O'Hara, you got a question?
Yeah, I've got a question. It seems to be raising its head again around Meningie on a long weekend and that is the free camp area, which Meningie hasn't got one. We had movement to put it on the Oval a few years ago, put a light up there. The council paid for a light up there for the caravans, then found out it was zoned wrong. Now, is it possible to change that zoning? And I mean, it's the perfect spot for a free overflow caravan park. And it is being used over Easter weekend. There was quite a few vans in there.
The area adjacent to the pony yards.
Yeah, between the skate park and the pony club, yeah.
The
Perfect
land-
area for it.
think
Is it possible to change the zoning? That's the question.
I couldn't tell you that answer straight up.
It is different to, was discovered after the light went up that it was different to Tailem Bend. The zoning, the land management there is different.
In relation to the ovals.
Yes, and Meningie.
Well, it's a
just-
question we can probably follow up
not doing it.
internally. Is there zoning a restricting factor in
So
that proposal?
can I just get clarity too, councillor O'Hara? Is your question that you're getting complaints about the people there, or we're not providing a facility for the overflow?
I think the biggest complaint is that people are camping anywhere around town, whereas they should be going to that free camp area.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's some camping at the little jetty and so forth, which is not ideal.
So some of that, through you, Mayor, is SAPOL to move people on. We
Should
tend,
be there.
I know, but again, we only have one compliance person. And if we get a direct complaint, and we've had one direct complaint at Meningie, we've been working with the resident who made the complaint and the person who had parked there, I think for maybe 2 nights. So there's a couple of nuances to that question, that's all.
I think it's probably time soon for us as a group of councillors to discuss the free camping movement that is across Australia. I think we've got several variants in this district at the moment and several proposals and several thoughts. So that might be taken as a different discussion with a bit of collection of other councils' experiences on that.
I think this is Mr Mayor, this is a problem all over
Look,
South
absolutely.
Australia at the present moment,
Well, some
particularly on
people
your
would say-
peninsula.
Some
All over
people would say it's
Australia.
not a problem.
Why is it a problem? Yeah. I wouldn't-
See what I mean? Right, I'm moving on.
I do nothing at Narrabri.
Councillor Bland, you're the next on the questions without notice. They are not, yes, you were.
I think so.
Who else was it then?
I think she just wanted to make a comment, that's all.
Right, is there any more questions without notice? Because
Yeah, I just helped Mick out.
tonight's moving on. Taking that there is none. Motions with notice. Councillors, I've had a discussion with Councillor Peach around this, and I'll just give him a chance in a second. At this stage, we probably don't want to move, or I don't want him to move forward with this, because as you can see, the legal advice is not complete. And we would like to look at some other options, I think in consultation with the councillor. I do note that we not deferred it, but I asked this process be after a request from the Action Club last meeting. Councillor Peach, you just want to add anything to, I mean, I know we would bring it back perhaps in a revised form, future meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would note, point number 2, the wording choice there is probably, not ideal. Council delegates responsibility. I'll probably bring this motion back, if I can just foreshadow that to my fellow councillors, with, council, authorises a permit for roadside activity for erecting and removing the poles, banners and decorations, which I think would negate a number of the concerns that have been raised in the advice received so far. I do think this is a very simple thing to do. There's a group of people that want to do it. It's been an ongoing issue for the last couple of years, and I would like to see this proactively solved rather than continue. I think this is a great way that we can actually save some money.
After the discussion, councillor, I hope you and me are somewhat on the same page on this, and next month you should be able to be in a position to move on it.
I look forward to bringing it back for the 3rd time.
Okay. We're boring. Okay, thank you. Motions without notice, councillors. Quick here. No. Okay, none. 14-minute action list, councillors. Anything you wish to follow up? Councillor O'Hara.
Yeah, I've got one thing, it's, 14323, the Bendigo Bank Service at Meningie. Just like to say that, they have put a sponsorship to Meningie Golf Club for their car of $10,000. So
Nice.
while they didn't meet the criteria for a grant, they gave them a sponsorship of 10,000. So it's very thankful to Councillor Peach.
So I think at this stage, our position is pretty sound on them, and their behaviour has been as we would hope from
It's wonderful.
a corporate. Thank them for that, and yeah, we'll just see how it goes. I know to my travels, it's, you know, there is council buildings in other parts of this state that host banking facilities. That's one I did note. Anyone else with a minute action list? Being none, we move to confidential items. So, councillors, for those watching the live stream, please be advised the meeting's about to move into confidence. The live stream will stop. For those who wish to view the end of the meeting, the video will be available on YouTube after today's meeting.